You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, biggest storylines for this game after what's going to happen at quarterback. We know Chambliss will start for Ole Miss and who both plays. From the Ole Miss perspective, what do you think is the biggest storyline in this game?
This is going to sound weird and counterintuitive, but it's Ole Miss stopping the run and making Garrett Nussmeier having to beat them as a one-dimensional quarterback. That's going to be the most important piece of this game. If LSU gets their running game going, that offense can get dang near unstoppable. We have seen LSU have success against Pete Golding when that running game gets going. So it's going to be imperative on Ole Miss, and they're 16th in the SEC right now in rush defense, going against a bad rushing offense for LSU. It's going to be the movable object versus the resistible force offensively, but whoever wins that is likely going to win the game.
I tend to agree. I think it's really just LSU's offensive line. You said it at the beginning, and you're right. The LSU is following the same path Ole Miss did a year ago. They had the veteran quarterback. They went ham in the transfer portal. Brian Kelly said it, spent $18 million. They went and got better at every level of the defense. They've got stars all over on the offensive side of the ball. It's what $18 million should look like. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem they have at LSU is the offensive line. And it's interesting. So you had 4 guys drafted, right? Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Most people know those guys, but Dellinger and Frazier were the guards. A lot of people may not be as familiar with. But you had 4 of your 5 starters drafted. The other guy is DJ Chester, who played center. And he's not your center anymore. You went to the portal and they got Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech, who's a multi-year starter, who is by far their best offensive lineman right now. But the real issue, Stephen, is they've got talent and they got experience. What they don't have are 5 guys that have played together. And so a lot of the issues they've had running the football early, I don't think it's a lack of ability from backs or offensive linemen. I've watched enough film breakdowns of people who are way smarter than me, and they'll look at blocking schemes, and you'll see, man, it's guys that are trying to combo block, and one guy thinks he's passing a defensive lineman off to a guy next to him, and it just whiffs. So that's the kind of thing where I think this LSU offensive line in November is dramatically better with experience than they are in September. So how much of a hopefully exponential growth curve can they have week to week this year? And going on the road, obviously, and what'll be a tough environment will be interesting. But I'm curious, and I hope you can answer this. You're right, it's bad on bad. But why is Ole Miss's rush defense been why are they dead last in the league right now in rush defense?
Well, I think that's a nuanced question, honestly. First of all, it's young guys. It's young guys everywhere, and it's kind of the same thing that happened with LSU on the offensive line. They gave up explosive runs against Georgia State and against Kentucky. That's got the numbers a little bit out of whack. They didn't give up touchdowns, but they gave up 30 and 40-yard chunk runs, and that counts in these statistics. Against Tulane on Saturday, when Ole Miss knew that Tulane was going to try and run the ball and Tulane needed to get a yard, Tulane couldn't get a yard. So they can do what they need to do. And they got better because they weren't doing that against Georgia State, if that is ridiculous. So the young guys are getting better as the course of the year goes on, but they're still not quite there. LSU's run game, it's going to be interesting because everybody should know Logan Diggs is in the backfield and understands that offense pretty considerably. So especially the run game. So the keys in the run game, Ole Miss should be pretty well adept of that, but they can't give up explosive plays, because when you give up explosive plays, then the tight end becomes a weapon. And when the tight end becomes a weapon shortly after that, it's going to be Barry and Brown and those guys on the outside. And next thing you know, you have the same game that we saw in 2023 to where nobody can stop anybody. And it's just an abomination for defensive coaching. But that's the key. LSU's offense, if you can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day for you. And this year shows that, honestly. Florida's not very good. The fact that LSU only scored 1 offensive touchdown after getting 5 interceptions, that's a little bit concerning. Clemson, not very good. We thought they were very good. That was a very big win at the beginning of the year and something that LSU has not had over the last 5 years. But it's coming into this game last year when Ole Miss took on Kentucky. I think this weekend, if we're going to be honest, is when Ole Miss played Kentucky.
Right.
We were all saying, well, Ole Miss hasn't played anybody. We don't know what to expect from this Ole Miss team. We don't know how good they really are. And then they went in there and Kentucky brought the fight to us and took Ole Miss down. And LSU, what do we really know about LSU right now? Because Clemson right now does not look very good. Florida is just an absolute dumpster fire. I think LSU might have broke DJ Lagway if we're going to be real about it. But what do we know? We know that they can take care of Sela. We understand that. But what do we know in this game? This is going to be the biggest atmosphere that group of $18 million transfers have come into. Clemson was big, but obviously we just talked about that.
With respect, Clemson was a madhouse, bro. Bigger stadium, they were bonkers. Don't diminish that. They went on the road in a big spot, and I understand every bit of skepticism about the Clemson and Florida wins as the sample size grow. What I'll say about both those teams, especially on their defensive front, are really talented.
Yeah, they have dudes. They really have dudes.
And I think what you saw offensively, it's interesting because I waffle a little bit here on if Brian Kelly's being truthful or if there's something more at work. And he's usually been pretty candid with us. But you referenced 2023, which was an abomination. Literally the worst defense statistically LSU's ever fielded. You all saw the worst of the worst in that game in Oxford. And I think Brian Kelly knew going into those games, maybe Nussmeier, the torso thing, whatever he was talking about. I think he knew he has a loaded gun on defense. They're really good on special teams as well. I think he knew he could go in there, and the only way that they were going to lose those games is if they made plays to get themselves beat. So I think they intentionally played a defensive game where they did play defense, field position, and they just didn't even attempt to stretch the field. Mm-hmm. Now, you're not going to be able to do that every week. I don't think they're going to be able to do that this week. I think they're going to have to go score points. But I think you're right in saying, like, this is the game where we will learn, right? Okay, so were you playing defensive games just because you're bringing along a young offensive line, or do you have real issues offensively? You're like, no one should take anything out of scoring 56 on an FCS opponent. But this is the one where you'll learn. But I wouldn't diminish that environment, man. Like,
no, it's not the environment, not the
atmosphere. To go to that was an impressive. Look, let's be honest. Part of the reason also why those two teams are where they are is because LSU beat them.
Yeah. And also, let's be real about this. If LSU is the mirror of the 2024 Ole Miss team, they're going to get a conference opponent and put 70 points on the board. They are going to play up against somebody that you're not sure if they're going to be able to beat. The question is, and the thought is, you don't want it to be you. You don't want it to coalesce. It's going to happen this year. It might be Arkansas again. It might be somebody, but it's going to happen, and you just don't want it to be you, because once they get going, they have the dudes to make you hurt because they paid the money to make you hurt.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Final thought and score predictions. We'll do that when we come back to wrap up here. It's a crossover with Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On LSU. Stay there. Hey, it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode here, this crossover episode of Locked On LSU and Locked On Ole Miss. Hey, do us a favor. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And please be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers or the Rebels, subscribe and that we're here every single day for Locked On LSU and Locked On Ole Miss.